Have you ever wondered why certain moments of intimacy remain vivid in your mind, while others slowly fade away? I used to believe intimacy was simply about chemistry, timing, or physical attraction. But the more I paid attention, the more I realized that definition was incomplete. There's a deeper layer, a silent form of communication that shapes how do people truly connect. This invisible thread often determines whether a bond becomes memorable or easy to forget. What's surprising is that most of us never stop to interpret it. We engage in the experience, we enjoy the moment, but we rarely ask what it represents beyond the physical level. And this is where things become meaningful. Because intimacy is not just about what the body expresses. It's about the emotions, communicated in ways words can't fully explain, and the gesture that reveals this. Truth most clearly isn't always what people assume. It's not the kiss, not the hug, and not even the act of making love itself. It's something different, often ignored, often misunderstood. A gesture that, when viewed from the right perspective, can transform how you understand men, relationships, and even your own emotional responses. But before I tell you what that gesture is, let me ask you something. Have you ever found yourself confused by someone's actions? As if they said one thing, yet their body expressed a completely different message. I remember a time when I thought I understood what intimacy truly meant, and experience challenged everything I believed. It made me question whether the signals I trusted were actually communicating what I assumed they were. And that uncertainty stayed with me far longer than the physical moment ever did. So pause with me for a moment. Why do we trust words so readily when truth often reveals itself through behavior? What if the most vulnerable, even bravest, signal a man can offer isn't something he says, but something he does? I won't give it away just yet. Part of its power comes from recognizing it yourself. I will say this. The action, is neither casual nor robotic. It isn't something every man does with every woman. In fact, it often separates shallow connection from something much deeper. Some of you might already have an idea. Others might not, and that's fine. In this video, I'll unpack it step by step, showing not only what the action is, but the 5 hidden messages it sends every single time. Stick around. You might never see intimacy the same way again. Let me be fully honest. I don't have every answer. I've made mistakes, misread signals, and convinced myself someone cared more than they did because I wanted that to be true. I've also minimized moments that, in hindsight, mattered far more than I realized, so I'm not here to preach. I'm here to share what I've learned, what I've questioned, and what I now view differently. Maybe you'll agree, maybe you'll disagree. Either way, it's a conversation worth having because intimacy isn't only about desire, it's about meaning. And meaning is the thing most people ignore until it's too late. Here's my promise. If you're willing to go deeper with me, beyond the physical, and into the psychological and emotional layers beneath it, you'll begin to notice patterns you may have overlooked. You'll start to understand why some men behave in certain ways, why some connections feel instantly magnetic, and why others leave you feeling unfulfilled. But before I share the first hidden truth, ask yourself, when was the last time someone's actions meant more than their words? Hold on to that memory, because the answer may change the way you interpret intimacy from this point forward. The first hidden truth is surrender. And at first that word might seem almost contradictory. Isn't intimacy supposed to be about passion, strength, taking initiative, showing desire? That's exactly what I used to believe. I thought intimacy only felt real when a man led, when he stayed in control, expressed authority, and left no doubt about his dominance. But the more closely I observed, the more I realized something surprising. True depth often begins the moment the illusion of control fades. Think about it. Men are taught from childhood to never let go. Be tough. Stay composed. Don't show weakness. Even in the bedroom, this pressure follows them, lasting longer. Performing better, never failing, never hesitating. Yet in the moment a man allows himself to fully give in, when he stops worrying about how he appears, how he compares, and directs all his attention toward you, something meaningful happens. That isn't weakness. It's strength expressed through surrender, I once asked myself. Why would a man step outside the role he's been trained to play his whole life? From what I've learned, Surrender is a form of trust. It says, right now, I don't need to control everything. I don't need to prove anything. I'm here to give to, lose myself in you, to put the focus on you instead of me. Rare because it demands courage. It requires a man to set down his armor, even briefly, and say, I feel safe enough here to let go. Some people argue it means nothing, that it's just another routine part of intimacy, one more move in the playbook. But it isn't that simple. But haven't you noticed the differentiator? Haven't you felt when someone was simply going through the motions compareto, when they were truly present and engaged? The shift in energy is clear. One feels routine, the other feels almost staggered. And that is the real meaning of surrender. It's not about the body's actions, it's about what the part expresses through those actions. This is where my understanding changed. Used to admire men who appeared in shakol, the ones who never lowered their guard, who seemed powerful and touchable. But as time passed, I realized those same men often felt distant, closed, as if there was an emotional barrier separating this. The men who impacted me, the mastwar, the ones who allowed that barrier to drop, the ones confident enough to give without needing control, that kind of surrender made me feel chosen in a way nothing else could. Because when a man can surrender in intimate moments, it shows he is grounded enough to understand that his masculinity is not fragile. He's secure enough to shift the focus away from himself and place it fully on you. And that is where a connection begins to change. Ask yourself this. When was the last time Simona gave to you without hurrying, without calculation, without expecting anything in return? How did it feel? For many women, that is the moment intimacy stops being a boot pleasure and becomes an act of devotion. It's not only about the physical experience, it's about the courage it takes for him to step out of the center and offer something more genuine, that is, surrender. And when surrender, is authentic, it creates a space where intimacy can grow beyond performance ano, something far more honest. The truth is, not every man reaches this stage. Some never will, because letting go feels too risky. But the ones who do reveal something remarkable not only about how they see you, but about how they view themselves. They're communicating without speaking. I'm secure enough to release control. I'm secure enough to focus on you. I'm secure enough to surrender. And once you recognize this, you start to view intimacy through a perspective that permanently shifts your understanding. But surrender is only the first step, because within it lies the beginning of something deeper. If surrender is the doorway, then trust is the foundation. Without trust, intimacy turns into something mechanical, something hollow, no matter how much passion is present. Yet trust remains one of the most delicate and often overlooked parts of closeness. We mention it constantly in relationships. Trust with money, trust with loyalty, trust with words. But the trust I'm referring to here is different. It's physical, yes, but also emotional. Because in those moments of real vulnerability, he's not just expressing desire for you, he's expressing faith in you. Consider what it means for a man to cross that. Lying men aren't taught to be comfortable with vulnerability. They're encouraged to hide their fears, maintain a certain image, and avoid anything that might make them appear weak. Yet in this moment, there is no mask, no distance, no escape. He is close, exposed, and choosing to remain there. That is trust in its most genuine form. I used to believe trust was shown through grand gestures, confessions, promises, dramatic declarations. But with time, I realized those meant little without the small, consistent actions that supported them. And in intimacy, this is one of the clearest examples. Because for a man to reach that level with you, he must trust that you won't mock him, that you won't diminish his masculinity, and that you won't interpret his giving as weakness. He has to trust that you will receive him with openness, gratitude, and a sense of respect for the vulnerability he is showing. And you can feel the difference. You can sense when a man is present with genuine trust versus when he is acting out of duty. There is a softness in him, an awareness, a way he pays attention to your reactions. Not because he feels unsure, but because your comfort matters to him. That isn't a technique. That's trust. Let me be honest. I used to overlook these moments, convincing myself this doesn't mean anything. It's just sex. But looking back, I can clearly see that the men who brought trust into intimacy were the ones who truly stayed with me. Their actions showed me I feel safe with you. I want to give myself without fear. And that sense of safety changed everything. It helped me relax, open up, and release control in my own way. Because here's what many people forget. Trust is not one-sided. It's not only about him trusting you, it's also about you trusting him enough to receive, to allow yourself to be seen at your most unfiltered, to let go and quietly say, I believe you'll treat me with care, is its own kind of courage. And when both people meet each other in that space, intimacy becomes something truly meaningful. Now ask yourself, when was the last time you trusted someone enough to drop the performance? Enough to be unguarded? Enough to be vulnerable without preparing or protecting yourself? It's rare, isn't it? And that rarity is what makes it powerful, because trust turns a physical moment into a bond. It turns a simple gesture into an unspoken message of safety and commitment. That's why. When a man chooses to show up like this, he's not only giving you pleasure, he's giving you evidence that he feels secure enough to be vulnerable, strong enough to risk closeness, and open enough to lower his defenses with you. And once that trust is formed, it doesn't remain limited to intimacy. It carries into every part of the relationship. When trust enters a connection, conversations grow deeper, barriers fade, and you feel safer, more connected, and more able to be your real self. That is the influence trust holds. But trust alone is only the first layer. When trust blends with surrender, it creates space for something even more meaningful. If surrender is the doorway and trust is the foundation, then worship becomes the atmosphere surrounding everything. And I'm using the word worship with intention because it carries significance. It isn't about submission or losing power. It's about reverence, about viewing something as deserving of admiration and respect. For many women, this is the moment that feels truly transformative. It's not only about being desired or touched. It's about being appreciated. Consider how often women receive contradictory messages about their bodies. Be confident, but not overly bold. Be attractive, but not too sexual. Take pride in yourself, but don't appear vain. These mixed expectations create hesitation, shame, and uncertainty. Yet within all these conflicting signals, when a man approaches you with genuine devotion, with the energy of, I don't just accept your body, I appreciate it. I want to savor it. I want to honor it, something inside you shifts. There was a time when I personally struggled to feel comfortable in my own skin. I questioned whether I was desirable enough, whether I was too much or not enough. But in those rare moments, when I felt worshipped rather than simply wanted, the doubts softened. I felt noticed, valued, even luminous. That is the impact of worship in intimacy. It cuts through confusion and allows you to feel undeniably cherished. And to be clear, not every man offers this experience. Some men treat intimacy like a routine rushing, following steps, acting from obligation rather than presence or intention. You can sense that, can't you? You can feel when someone's energy is distracted, indifferent, or mechanical. But you also recognize the contrast when the energy changes, when the moment slows down, when every touch feels intentional, and when every gesture communicates. I'm fully here with you. That shift is worship. And here's the interesting paradox. While it may look like he's giving everything to you, the act of worship nourishes him as well. Because in watching you release control, in seeing your body react, in feeling your trust and openness, he feels affirmed. He feels alive, powerful, in a loving, grounded way, connected, not just physically, but emotionally. Worship becomes shared fuel. For him, it's devotion expressed. For you, it's value and worth received. I used to believe the word worship was too intense for intimacy. It belonged to religion or ceremony, not to love or sexuality. But as I grew older, I realized how deeply reverence can reshape the way two people connect. When a man worships you in this way, He's not saying you are an object he wants. He's saying you are an experience he values. That small shift changes everything, because suddenly your body is not a commodity. It's not something to be managed, but something honored. And when a woman feels honored, she expands. She opens more, trusts more, gives more. Worship creates safety. And safety allows desire to grow freely, without fear. Ask yourself, when was the last time you felt not only desired, but cherished? Not just wanted, but honored. That feeling is rare, and it's exactly why worship matters. It's not about performance. It's about presence. It's not about duty. It's about genuine devotion, and that devotion leaves an impression that lasts long after the moment ends. But here's what most people overlook. Worship isn't only emotional. It also requires investment. Because when someone truly worships you, they choose to give their time, focus, and energy. And that brings us to the next truth that deepens intimacy even more. If surrender is the doorway, trust is the foundation, and worship is the atmosphere, then emotional investment is the evidence that everything is authentic. Because here's the reality. Anyone can go through the motions. Anyone can imitate passion. Anyone can go through the motions of intimacy like following a script. But you immediately notice the difference when someone is genuinely invested in you. They aren't there just to take or satisfy a fleeting urge. They dedicate their energy, focus, and time to you. That kind of presence cannot be faked. I used to mistake attention for investment. I thought that if someone was attentive in the moment, it meant they cared deeply. But attention can be shallow. It often lasts only as long as the immediate pleasure. Investment, however, leaves a lasting impression. You sense it in the way someone lingers, adjusts according to your reactions, and doesn't rush toward the end, but instead cherishes the journey. That is emotional investment. It's not only about what he does, it's about how he does it. Here's the key. Investment is a conscious choice. He could focus solely on himself, on his own gratification, taking the path of least effort. But when he chooses to invest in you, it sends a clear message. You are worth my effort. You are worth my time. You are worth slowing down for. And when you feel that, when you sense that dedication, it changes everything. I've often asked myself why emotional investment matters so deeply. For me, the answer is that it transforms intimacy from something transactional into something meaningful and memorable. Sex without investment fades quickly. It feels empty, like a task checked off with nothing left behind. But when there is true investment, it creates a connection that lingers long after. It becomes a memory, a bond, a story held by both your body and your heart, and that is what sets it apart. Let me be vulnerable with you for a moment. There were moments when I engaged in intimacy without truly investing myself. I convinced myself it was enough, that pleasure alone would suffice. Yet, each time I walked away feeling a subtle emptiness. I realized that what I sought wasn't just the physical act, but the deeper meaning behind it. Meaning requires investment, because investment signals I care enough to give more than the minimum. I notice you, I respond to you, I adjust to you. That distinction separates genuine passion from mere performance. Here's a paradox. While investment often seems to benefit the other person, it also nurtures him. When a man invests in you, he sees your body respond and watches you fully immerse in the moment. That becomes his reward, a confirmation that his effort has created something authentic. In this exchange, both partners gain. Consider this. When was the last time someone truly invested in you, not out of obligation, but out of choice? How did it feel? For most, that is the line between being forgotten and being remembered. Between feeling used and feeling valued, emotional investment acts as the bridge between admiration and commitment. When someone repeatedly invests in you, it grows beyond devotion. It begins to reflect loyalty, consistency, and unspoken dedication. This brings us to the ultimate truth, the principle that ties everything together. If surrender is the doorway, trust is the foundation, admiration is the atmosphere. An emotional investment is the proof, then unspoken commitment is the quiet message that unites it all. Words can be cheap, promises can fail, and labels can be ambiguous, but actions communicate in a language no one can fake. Actions made with presence, intention, care, often reveal more than 100 declarations ever could. I once believed commitment had to be overt, marked by rings, titles, or public statements. Over time, I realized real commitment often appears quietly, in moments unseen by others. It shows through consistent giving, through the focus someone continually returns to you, and through revealing themselves without needing to announce it. When a man approaches intimacy with genuine care, he's not pursuing a fleeting high. He's saying, "I'm here. I choose you. I want this moment to matter." This doesn't always imply a promise of forever, but it does mean he's committing his energy, vulnerability, and presence to you in that moment, and those are gifts not given lightly. That's why I call it an unspoken commitment, because even when he doesn't voice it, the meaning is clear. Have you noticed how the smallest gestures can feel like the biggest promises? The way someone lingers instead of rushing, remembers your cues without being told, or shows up for you when it would be easier. Not to that's commitment in disguise. In intimacy, it's no different. When he chooses to give in this way, he signals that you are not just a body to him, you are a bond, connection, someone worthy of his full presence. Recognizing this changes everything. Suddenly, you stop asking, "Is this just sex?" and start understanding that intimacy can speak louder than words. Honestly, I've had moments of doubt, wondering if someone truly cared, if I was genuinely chosen, if the bond was real. And looking back, it wasn't their words that answered MIT, was their actions. Actions that said, "You're not here just for my pleasure. You're my partner. This matters."
The commitment that doesn't need to be spoken.
And when you feel it, you know it. Ask yourself, when was the last time someone showed you, through their actions rather than words, that you mattered? How did it change the way you saw them in, the way you saw yourself? True intimacy isn't about techniques, performance, or even the act itself. It's about what it reveals: surrender, trust, devotion, investment, and ultimately, commitment. Once you begin to see intimacy this way, you can't unsee it. You start noticing which connections are shallow and which run deep. You begin valuing not just desire, but devotion. You realize that the language of intimacy has been speaking to you all along, you just hadn't. I'd learned to listen. So here's my challenge. The next time you experience that moment, don't rush past it. Don't dismiss it as just part of sex. Pay attention. Listen. Feel what's being communicated. Ask yourself, what is he really saying through his actions? And perhaps most importantly, am I allowing myself to receive it? If this perspective opened your eyes or gave you a new understanding of intimacy, I invite you to go deeper with me. Hit the like button if this resonated. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because true intimacy isn't just about bodies, it's about connection, devotion, and the unspoken truths that words alone can't express.